Ahoy, my friends, Ryder here, and welcome back to another Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis video. Today, I'm going to be diving into the new Vincent half anniversary banner. I'm going to be taking a look at the costume, the weapon, making some comparisons to other weapons in the game, other ice element focused weapons, although this one brings something entirely new to the table that we have not seen before in Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. So I'm going to give you guys basically all of my opinions on the costume and the weapon. It's a little bit of a tricky one because of this new ability that it's added into the game, which I feel like kind of was a total curveball. When I first saw the teaser for it, I thought that this was just going to be some super powerful ice element focused weapon that created some type of secondary imperil, and it's just not really like that at all. So let's go to the weapon here. The weapon here is the Gun of the Worthy, and it basically adds in an ability called Element Weakness, which essentially creates an elemental weakness in an enemy that would not have existed prior. Now, the circumstances in which this can and can't be used are, for example, if a boss has a resistance to ice, then the elemental weakness will not work, right? Also, if the boss is already weak to ice, right? So like something we could naturally ice imperil, the element weakness will also not work. However, if you're fighting something that does not have a resistance to ice and is not weak to ice, you can essentially make that boss weak to ice for a limited period of time at the beginning of the fight. I believe it's 70 seconds at OB1, 100 seconds at OB6, and 150 seconds at OB10. Now, I really think that the difference between OB6 and OB10 here is pretty drastic. We typically don't really see anything too different between OB6 and OB10 other than weapon potency and R abilities. Like, for example, normally if something goes, mid to high as a buff at OB6, it's not going to get high at OB10. It's still going to be mid to high, which I thought was appropriate in the game. This one kind of takes a little bit of a jump right there, creating more of a gap between a player who would go for OB6 as opposed to OB10. And so, anyways, guys, there's a lot of stuff to get into. So first, let's take a look at the animation. There it is right there. Pretty sick. So he's actually going for like the left-handed slash right here first. As we can see, he's charging it up. Boom, followed by the gun right there. Pretty cool animation. I do like it. All right, now if we go in here, let's take a look at the costume. I looked at this in my patch updates video. I do like the costume. I will say that I like the upper half of the costume a lot better than the lower half of the costume. I really like the dark black leather armor right here, the gold necklace he's got going on, the red tattoos just kind of adds to the whole thing. The long black hair and the black bandana looks super sick, guys. I like the kind of, I don't know what you would call this right here, like the neck armor that comes up. I like the high collar style look on things, so I think it does look pretty cool. I really like the armor on the right arm right here with the chains. The chains, like, realistically, if he was going into battle, this makes like absolutely zero sense whatsoever. Like, you wouldn't want to weigh down your arm, and it really makes no sense for them to be there. But with the Japanese aesthetics when it comes to this kind of stuff, I do think that it does look cool at the very least right here. I like the color of the armor that kind of meshes with everything right here. He's got a little opening in the back. I don't really understand why that's there. I like the waist armor right here coming around with the chains going on. So more or less, I really like it. The gun, I feel like, looks really sick. It's like this kind of crimson color. The lower half of the costume, I'm not quite as fond of. I feel like it would look better if it was, because it has this opening in the back right here. But actually, I feel like it would have looked better if the opening was in the front. But other than that, he's got this long kind of, I don't even know what you guys would call this. I'm just going to call it a scarf That's going straight down from his waist right here. But all in all, I really like the costume, guys. I think this is definitely one of Vincent's best costumes, if not the best one right there. Now, taking a look at the Coat of the Worthy, I'm a little bit disappointed that it's not a Omni Arcanum, just personally for me, because I would have loved to, open up Magic Lightning for me with Vincent. Then I could have built the Crow Familiar. I would have had access to, a 30% Lightning potency. But I can understand why they went with this approach on the weapon. Most of the Omni Arcanum costumes don't come with an elementally focused weapon, right? So it makes sense that this is focused in the ice realm. And guys, this is the absolute best ice physical arcanum in the game, hands down. It is very good, guys. So in the first R ability, we have boost attack, all allies right here. It's going to get us physical magic attack plus 10 plus the extra 5% to both. And then we have the Crimson Hue of the Worthy as the secondary R ability. We're getting not quite a Ice Arcanum level here. So we have Ice ability damage plus 30%. But then we are getting a outstanding attack stance command gauge max physical ability damage plus 20%, guys. 20%. I thought this would have been 10% for sure, but 20% is very powerful. So in terms of Ice Arcanum costumes in the game, guys, this is absolutely hands down the best one. Now, taking a look at the Gun of the Worthy, all right? So this is an interesting gun, and to be honest, guys, I'm still a little conflicted about it. I can't decide, how I really feel. Like, obviously, if I had all the extra crystals in the game, I would for sure be going for it. Like, stack up my physical ice team to the maximum amount possible. You pair this Vincent with Cloud, with Stream Saber, and you can essentially make any enemy that's not resistant to ice or weak to ice, right? And then you can just basically obliterate them with this gun and paired with any other sub DPS. So it's really powerful. But you never know. We could be getting a bunch of enemies in the future that are resistant to all elements, stuff like that. Obviously, this weapon is going to have its time to really shine in the next 4 to 6 weeks, as all new weapons do, especially anniversary weapons. They really get like their, 1 to 2 months of like time in the sun, and then they start to fade out. They start to bring in other things like this. So I think there's like a couple different ways of looking at this weapon and whether or not it should be in your account. And the first way to approach it is, in your account, how is your physical ice setup? Is it strong? Do you already have something, right? So like we have, different, so I'll just go over here to weapons and we'll take a look at some of the ice weapons that I have. All right, so we'll go to filter and we'll just filter by ice. All right, so for example, let's take a look at Cloud's OB10 Stream Saber. Mine is branded, so it's dealing 936% physical ice damage, so it's still doing like 184% less damage than Vincent's is going to do at OB10, but I still think that 936% is still pretty feasible for likely most ice content in the game. I'm going to go ahead and say 99%. It's probably going to be good because I'm still using weapons with a potency of 800%, then you pop on the brands, and I've still been able to clear a large portion, if not, I've still been able to clear a large portion of the content in the game. So, if you guys have the Stream Saber, if you have Glenn's new Ice Axe, which is like 940% without the multiplier, I believe, then I don't think that you necessarily need to go for a stronger ice weapon. Then we also have things like the Pressured Ridge. So if you take a look at this at OB10, it deals 620%. So, this is a lot closer to half of the damage of Vincent's weapon. However, it does come with an Ice in Peril, and the R abilities are really good on this weapon as well. I don't know if I could necessarily call this a strong enough contender for a main hand for a ice physical team. I don't quite think it is. I think this is meant to be a secondary in a group while also having a primary DPS. But then there's other options, right? We have like the Spiral Shuriken for Yuffie. This deals 800% physical ice damage. It also has the physical attack ice potency 39 right here. And then we also have the Holy Flame Gloves right here for Tifa. This deals 820%. I believe it's branded. It is. So it would be 800% as well for Yuffie. You know, and I think that if you had these weapons for Yuffie or Tifa and you have the corresponding Arcanum or Omni Arcanum, you're still going to be able to compete in ice content. You can definitely clear, you know, at least 95% of the content that's requiring ice. But if you don't have any of these weapons, guys, or if you have the weapons but you don't have the Arcanums or the Omni Arcanums, then Vincent is really looking like a good choice for your account, right? Because we're slowly trying to build up, you know, a weapon type for each element and each physical magic attribute of that element as well. And so that's kind of what I'm always looking at, just because I want to be able to play the content in the game. I want to be able to have fun and open up my account and be able to, you know, fight as many things as possible. So, you know, I think that, like I said, guys, if you have the Arcanums and you have any of these weapons that I've shown or talked about at OB10, and if they're, you know, non-limited, right, then you can also be wishlisting them as well. I think that going after Vincent in the terms of strengthening your ice team is not absolutely necessary. He's more of an easier skip at this point in time. I would recommend Sephiroth over him for most players, just depending on your account. However, the other aspect of Vincent's gun is the fact that he can make other content in the game weak to ice, which can give you a significant advantage in a lot of fights. So, you know, going in and fighting Bahamut EX3, right, where we can essentially bring any element into that fight, or we can bring, you know, a non-elemental setup into that fight, but like, you know, this gun in a fight like Bahamut is really going to make that fight a lot easier, guys. There's going to be certain bosses in the game where this weapon is going to truly shine, and I think it's really going to shine in those places where you can actually take a boss that isn't weak to this element and make it weak to that element. It's a very, very, very strong attribute to have in the game, and honestly kind of confuddles a lot of the, you know, the strategy in the game going into this stuff, because it really opens up a lot of doors, I feel like, which is a bit almost confusing and kind of like mind-boggling to think about. And then I'm trying to think about all the bosses where this could be possible. Probably Titan. You know, there's a bunch of different bosses where you could bring this in. The one drawback to this weapon, guys, is the fact that the ice weakness has a one-time cast. On the first time you use this weapon in battle, it's going to apply ice weakness if possible against the boss, and then it's going to have a one-time duration, right? And when that duration fades, this buff is gone. It is not coming back for the rest of the battle. So, you know, for certain bosses where we want to blitz them down, Guild Wars, this is going to be very powerful, guys. Very powerful in Guild War, you know, because at OB10 we're going to get 150-second duration, which is literally exactly 2.5 minutes, which is the length of all Guild War battles. So, you know, but then when you have other boss fights like hard crash fights, stuff like that, you know, where you have 10, 12, 14, 15-minute boss fights, and this is only going to last at, you know, I mean, even if you just had one copy of this, this is lasting 70 seconds, guys. And in any fight in the game, 70 seconds goes by real fast. So I personally think that I do not recommend getting this weapon if you cannot get it to a minimum of OB6, guys. But realistically, you really want to be pushing to get this weapon to OB10. So I do think that if you are going to pull for it, you know, if you're dedicated on this, if you love Vincent, if you know, if you want to bring out the full potency of the weapon, this is a weapon that you're really trying to go all in on, essentially, right? Which is what brings my personal hesitation to it, because, you know, I kind of like the idea of different bosses and being able to use different types of weapon types and elements and stuff like that. But then I can just find a boss and then make it weak to ice and then use ice, and I just feel like I will just be using ice all the time, which doesn't quite sound as fun to me. That's just a personal thing. But also, if you guys are looking at it from a, you know, perspective of like bringing in a new ice weapon into your account in order to have a stronger ice potency, right? So at OB1, it's not going to be as strong as like Yuffie's Holy Flame Gloves. It's not going to be as strong as Yuffie's Spiral Shuriken, right? Because this is 740%. The ice weakness will not work on enemies that are weak to ice. And so I also can't really recommend going for this unless you can get it minimum of OB6, even if you aren't worried about turning bosses to be weak to ice, you know, and you're just focused on the ice aspect of the weapon. I still think that this is a weapon that, you know, realistically, guys, it doesn't really make sense for me personally to go for this unless I was really pushing to OB6 or like preferably beyond that, right? So let's take a look at the stats of this weapon and go through it, right? So at OB1, level 120, 396 physical attack. We have physical attack all allies 32, boost ice potency 15, right? We have a double physical attack boost and a triangle sigil break right here. And then we take a look at the actual ability right here. Frozen Strike, 4 ATB cost, deals 740% physical ice damage. This is very strong at OB1, guys. 740% is very strong, but it's also beatable by other weapons that we can slowly wishlist and build over time. Granted, you have those Arcanum costumes, right? And I can't speak for all of you guys and all of your accounts, so this is something you really have to just take a look at yourself and see what you want to do. I'm just giving you guys an overall like insight into my thoughts on this weapon, how I perceive it, what is the thought process that I go through when I'm trying to figure out, do I want to go for this, or is it better maybe to wait for something else, right? So 740% physical ice damage. It also applies ice weakness 30%, which with a duration of 70 seconds, I feel like is basically kind of a bust. The fact that it can't be extended, I wish it had at least one extension. That would give it more like viability to people that don't have such a high OB level, but that condition first use only can only be applied once is definitely the drawback of this weapon, guys, and it is going to, you know, show that weakness, especially in longer fights like I was saying before. Now if we take it to OB6, however, right, you get 622 physical attack, you're going to deal 930% physical ice damage, so this is only 6% less than my Stream Saber on Cloud, right? It's going to apply the ailment ice weakness 50% now as opposed to the 30% that was on OB1, so this is definitely getting better now, and the duration is going to be 100 seconds, so this is going to be 1 minute and 40 seconds, which still isn't really that long, guys, when you're going into these long fights. It's going to help in a fight like Bahamut where you could take in an ice team and clear Bahamut anyway. This is just going to give you a nice super kick at the beginning of the fight. And if you guys are looking to, you know, bring in an ice weapon just for your account to strengthen your ice physical team, then having it at OB6 930% is still going to be fairly strong, I would say. Plus you could slowly build the weapon over time, try to get it up to OB10 if you could, right? But still the duration here is 50 seconds less than what it would be at OB10, which is another minute, guys. It's a whole other minute. So this weapon at OB10 and OB6 is like two completely separate things, guys, because, you know, if we take a look at the R abilities here, you know, 40 over 27, those are great. It's definitely good right here. It's good, but this weapon is not great unless you hit OB10. Right? OB10, 679 physical attack. You're going to get the full 1,120% physical ice damage, which trumps frickin' Glenn's weapon. It completely beats out the Stream Slasher, I can't remember the name of Stream Saber for Cloud, you know, you're getting a massive amount of physical ice damage, right? Which makes it a extremely powerful physical ice weapon. And then on top of having that, you also get the ice weakness plus 50% and the maximum duration, guys. So I would say that, you know, if you're looking to utilize this ice weakness plus 50%, guys, in order to clear bosses, this is a weapon that you go all in for. You go for OB10, and if you can't go for OB10, don't go for it. However, if 930% and the 50% ice weakness is a bonus for you with the 100 seconds right here, then you can go for OB6. You're still going to have a really strong ice weapon. You're going to have moments in the game where you're going to be able to utilize the ice weakness, just not to its fullest potential. And so in certain circumstances, I could understand going for OB6. But for me personally, guys, since I have the Stream Saber already at 936% right here, I would want to take this weapon to OB10. I would want to improve upon what I already have in a better way. I think that any boss that, you know, is not weak to ice, we will have other means of beating those bosses, right? We can beat Bahamut without this. We can beat any other content in the game without having to use this. It's like an extra gimmick. It allows you to bring in something new, something fun to play with into certain battles, but I don't think that this is going to be absolutely necessary in I would say 99% of, you know, boss fights. This is not going to be necessary. It's going to be an addition to something that we already have, you know, a different way of fighting something. And so, you know, it really just depends on what you're going for, guys. So that's basically my oversight on this weapon. I think that it's likely that I personally skip this weapon. Obviously, I will wait till the end of the anniversary. This banner, guys, all right, if we take a look here, ends on April 16th, all right? Ends on April 16th. That is over a month away from now. We're going to get the rest of the banners for the anniversary, and we're going to get 1 or 2 banners from after the anniversary, right? So we have the time to wait. So I'm going to wait and see what's going on. My guess is that Tifa is going to get an Earth physical version of this on the last banner of the anniversary. That would be my guess. And then Angeal is anybody's guess at this point, guys. I have literally no idea what Angeal is going to be when he comes out. But for me, you know, I have the crystals to go for OB10. I'm around 100k right here, so I could potentially go for it, but if I am going to go for it, I'm going to go all in for it, meaning that I'm going to skip Angeal and I'm going to skip Tifa. And the only way that I know that I could do that is if I wait to see what their kits are when they come out. So essentially, guys, that is my thoughts on this banner. I think for most people, probably an easy skip. I think for the people that go for it and manage to get it OB6 or OB10 are definitely going to have some fun with it, guys. It's going to be a fun weapon. Anything new and shiny in the game is fun for sure. You know, but we have to choose and pick our battles and which ones we want to kind of fight and go in for. And for me, this is one that I'm going to be waiting as of now, right? I would likely go back and build Sephiroth's weapon further rather than go in on this banner in most cases. But like I said, I'm just going to wait it out and see what's coming next and then make my choices from there. So I'm curious what you guys think. Do you guys disagree? Do you guys agree? Did you guys pull for the weapon? If you did, I hope you guys got the best of luck. I know my friend Homelander got death penalty on the first pull of this banner, so grats, dude. That's freaking awesome. And so, you know, I know some people definitely are going to be super psyched on the weapon. I'm happy to live vicariously through them and see the weapon in combat and maybe see it against some battles, maybe in this battle ranking, just to see how it does. It's definitely going to shine in this battle ranking, guys, 100%. But yeah, that's going to basically conclude my video, guys. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis content. And yeah, that being said, catch you guys in the next one. Peace.